We are talking about Donald Trump now. Let's listen to what the Donald himself has to say about his first of many courtroom trials.
Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged. The whole country's a mess between the borders and fake elections, and you have a trial like this where the judge is so conflicted he can't breathe.
So Donald Trump there, ex-president, might be president again in November, who knows, because he's the Republican nominee. He is in his usual combative form, and we are now 2 days into the jury deliberations on the first of what I think so far is going to be 4 trials. What he's actually on trial for currently in New York is the allegation, in fact lots of counts I believe, 34 counts of falsifying business records to allegedly hide a $130,000 hush money payment to Stormy Daniels just ahead of the 2016 presidential election. He says it's all politics, it's a political show trial, a kangaroo court. Many think that the judge, in his directions over the last few days of this trial, has also shown bias. Well, look, let's talk about that now with Greg Swenson, who's a spokesperson for Republicans overseas. He knows all about this trial. Greg, what's your view on this? Is it a political show trial? Is this just political opportunism on the part of a Democrat stunt, effectively?
Yeah, Russell, that's an understatement, actually. I mean, this is a complete weaponization of the justice system. Even Democrats, even prominent Democrat lawyers on the left end of the spectrum have said this is really not good for the country, not good for democracy. It's a complete sham. And that's not to suggest for a minute that I don't think he can get convicted of a felony. He could, because of the hostile jury and the hostile prosecutor and obviously the hostile judge in Juan Marchand here. So I don't know what the outcome will be, but I think the electorate realizes that whatever the outcome is, this is a complete abuse of the judicial system.
So this is in New York is a famously democratic state in terms of the way it votes, and of course those in the judicial system that are elected are Democrats, the district attorney and so on. Allegations, of course, presuppositions that even the judge has connections to Democrats, so therefore this whole thing is rigged in favour of the Democrats. And look, we'll see what the outcome of the trial is. But there's an argument here, of course, though, Greg, isn't there, that because this is seen by so many, particularly dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporters, as something of a show trial, something of just political, something of a political flavour without there being much substance to it, that this actually empowers Trump, doesn't it?
Oh, without a doubt, Russell. I mean, look, I wasn't actually for Trump in the nomination process. I was behind Ron DeSantis, but I think a lot of us that were behind other candidates in the nomination understand that this is, again, a complete weaponization. So, there are many Republican voters that swung to Trump. That's quite obvious because he had a 30-point swing after the Alvin Bragg indictment. But more importantly, you've got independents and even never Trumpers that are seeing this as a complete sham trial. And so even if the outcome is a conviction, I hope it's not, but even if there is, I don't think this will hurt President Trump much in terms of polling. The last poll I saw from Quinnipiac was 6% of the Republicans or Trump supporters might bail on him if there's a conviction. But again, most people have their views already set. You either like President Trump, that's half the country. You don't like him, that's the other half. More importantly, it's the independents. I don't think independents will see this, and the polling is suggesting that independents will see this, even if there's a conviction, as completely unfair. And so I'm not that worried about the outcome. If the outcome is an acquittal, I think Trump goes up 5 points.
Yeah.
If the outcome is a conviction, maybe he goes down 1 or 2. I don't think
we can, and Greg, we can see how this plays out. You know, when he was first arrested all those months ago, and his mugshot was turned into a T-shirt, if you remember, and it sold out in minutes because, of course, it was then seen he was seen as a martyr. And I guess, look, there is a point here that no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, if the judiciary, if the justice system can be weaponised by those in power to take out political opponents, that's not really the free and democratic America, is it, that most Americans think that they reside in, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Russell. And I'm worried about that because I think there'll be some repercussions here. I think there'll be an obvious pushback or somewhat of a revenge play. And I don't advocate that. I don't want that to happen. But that might be the only way to save the system is to push back against this. And when Trump wins, I think there should be some serious consideration to looking at judges like Juan Marchand and looking and saying, okay, maybe this is time to disbar them or at least make sure that they're not prosecuting these sham cases in the future. But I think you'll see some pushback from red state prosecutors. And again, I'm not advocating that, but I think that's inevitable at this point.
And Greg, of course, if he is convicted and then sentenced, bearing in mind this whole thing started off as a misdemeanor, it's then been, again, I'm using the words of others, the critics of this process, it's then been a process that's been weaponised by way of it then becoming a felony. The conviction does potentially carry a sentence of imprisonment. So will we see Donald Trump potentially campaigning for the White House from a prison cell?
No, because this will be appealed, obviously. And if there's a conviction, there is no doubt that it will be overturned on appeal because there's so many flaws in this case. It should never have reached even the point that it's at now. So with all the flaws in the case, the indictment was a complete hoax. The judge is very much of a hoax. There's no way this thing won't be overturned on appeal. The question is whether the appeal can be processed before the election. I doubt it. But again, I think because of how ridiculous this case is, and even the judge's recommendations to the jury 2 days ago, I think people will view this as, again, like you and I have both pointed out, a complete weaponization. I don't think it hurts him. He surely will not be in jail. That's not going to happen. And again, it'll be overturned on appeal. But I think ultimately this probably helps President Trump in the election. I don't think it'll have a huge impact either way.
And if he is convicted and then becomes president, I presume he can just pardon himself, can he?
Well, in a federal case, he can pardon himself. In a state case, again, this is how absurd it is. This is a misdemeanor in the state of New York. The state of New York does not have the jurisdiction to prosecute a federal election case, which is what they tried to turn it into.
But so they are.
He could, yeah, I know, which is all the more absurd, this case is. So I don't know that he can pardon himself, but this case, of the 4 cases against him, the 4 indictments, this was the most ridiculous. So very much to his advantage, to President Trump's advantage, this one came first. It will surely be overturned. He doesn't have to pardon himself.
But Greg, if he is convicted, it doesn't bar him from standing as president, presumably. Just
no,
because he's got a
it does not.
Yeah.
No,
and as you rightly say, look, this is the first of 4 hurdles, right? So he's got another 3 cases that are on the slate that he's now got to fight over the next 2 or 3 years, although 2 of them have been stayed, I think.
Yes, and the third one is completely ridiculous. So I think, again, this is the most obscene of the cases, but the other 3 have run into some real hurdles. So I can guarantee for sure there will not be another trial before the election. But I think the other 3 cases are slowly going away. And I think the fact that this one, again, the most ridiculous of the 4, came first was good.
Greg,
for him.
We need to take a break now for the news. Look, thank you very much for joining us. Let's see what the outcome is over the next 24, 48 or more hours.